When we talk about success, most of us jump straight to strategy, what to do, how to do it, when to do it. But here's something that the science of performance and neurobiology is making very clear. Before all that, there's a more foundational process that you need to master, and that's directing your attention inward. Your ability to focus on yourself, to control your own behaviors, habits, thoughts, and emotional states is the single most powerful tool for long-term progress. Neuroscientists have shown that the circuits in your brain that allow you to narrow your focus, to delay short-term gratification for long-term goals, actually grow stronger the more you practice them. And that's why the phrase "focus on you until you win" is so much more than just a motivational slogan. It's a biological blueprint for real change. When you prioritize your own energy, remove distractions, and put in deep, deliberate work on yourself, your attention system, your dopamine circuits, your prefrontal cortex, they all align to drive you toward mastery. Your ability to master your attention is one of the most powerful skills you can cultivate because it directly shapes the structure and function of your brain. Every time you make the conscious choice to focus, you're engaging a complex network of neural pathways that can grow and adapt through practice. Neuroscience tells us that this process, known as neuroplasticity, is what allows the brain to change in response to experience. When you pay close attention to one task, skill, or goal, you're essentially reinforcing the very circuits that support sustained focus, working memory, and self-regulation. It's not just an abstract mental exercise, it's a biological process that influences how well you'll be able to focus tomorrow, next week, and a year from now. On a deeper level, mastering attention engages the prefrontal cortex, the area of your brain responsible for executive function, decision-making, and long-term planning. Every time you choose to direct your attention toward your goals rather than distractions, you're strengthening this region. It's like exercising a muscle. Repeated practice improves your capacity for focus, just as weight training improves your capacity for strength. This is the reason athletes practice the same skill over and over, and why musicians repeat the same passages countless times. They are literally shaping their nervous systems to fire more efficiently and precisely. Similarly, when you practice bringing your focus back whenever your mind wanders, you train your brain to hold a target more steadily, allowing you to concentrate for greater lengths of time. What happens at a chemical level is equally important. Focusing intently on something that matters to you sparks the release of neuromodulators like acetylcholine and dopamine. Acetylcholine fine-tunes the activity of neural circuits, heightening your sensory perception and helping you lock onto your task with laser-sharp precision. Dopamine, often misunderstood as just the pleasure molecule, plays a crucial role in motivation and reinforcement. When you give your attention to a meaningful task and make progress, even small progress, you receive a small surge of dopamine that tells your brain, "This is important, do it again." This cycle reinforces itself over time, creating a positive feedback loop that gradually enhances your ability to focus and work with purpose. And the beauty of this process is that it's within your control. You can make a deliberate choice to focus on one thing at a time, to reduce distractions like social media and excessive notifications, and to structure your environment so it supports your goals. The more often you make that choice, the easier it becomes to do so, because you're reinforcing those circuits in your brain every single time. Even the act of sitting quietly and simply observing your breath for a few minutes can help. This is one of the core practices of mindfulness, which is well documented to increase gray matter density in areas like the anterior cingulate cortex that support sustained attention and self-regulation. Additionally, when you practice focusing your attention, you improve your capacity to ignore irrelevant stimuli. This isn't a matter of becoming rigid or inflexible. It's about becoming selective so that you can direct your finite mental energy toward what truly matters. The average person is bombarded by hundreds of small distractions every day. Every time you say no to those distractions and return to your intended focus, you're reinforcing a skill that will allow you to execute at a higher level than most people around you. That mastery over attention also leads to a greater sense of autonomy and self-trust. When you realize that your ability to focus is under your control and that it can grow with practice, you stop feeling like a passive recipient of stimuli and instead take an active role in shaping your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. This is one of the most empowering shifts you can experience because it underpins all other types of personal development. Whether you want to improve your career, your fitness, your relationships, or you're learning, attention is the key ingredient that enables all of those improvements to happen. In short, mastering attention is not some elusive talent reserved for a select few. It's a biological skill that you can train and strengthen through deliberate practice. And as you do so, your brain will continue to reorganize itself, making it easier to hold your focus, ignore distractions, and pursue your most meaningful goals with a sense of drive and clarity that becomes self-sustaining over time. Prioritizing yourself is one of the most transformative decisions you can make because it allows you to build resilience and discipline from the inside out. Every time you choose to put your personal growth, health, and goals first, you're signaling to your brain and body that your aspirations matter. This shift in mindset is critical because the energy you spend worrying about what others think, meeting their expectations, or putting their needs before your own is energy that cannot be invested in becoming the most capable version of yourself. When you draw that energy inward, you gain the capacity to craft a lifestyle that supports who you truly want to become. It is not selfish to focus on yourself. It is an investment in your future that benefits everyone around you. When you make yourself a priority, you begin to establish boundaries that protect your focus and well-being. That might mean setting aside specific times each day to work on your goals, saying no to obligations that drain you, or stepping away from relationships that no longer align with your values. This process can feel uncomfortable at first because most of us have been conditioned to believe that we owe our time and attention to everyone except ourselves. But by protecting your energy and committing to your own growth, you gain the mental bandwidth to tackle difficult tasks, learn new skills, and persevere through obstacles without feeling constantly depleted. Every time you practice setting and enforcing these boundaries, you build the resilience that will help you navigate inevitable stress and adversity. Prioritizing yourself also requires cultivating discipline, which is fundamentally about choosing long-term progress over short-term comfort. Neuroscience shows that disciplined behavior is closely linked to the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that supports decision-making, impulse control, and planning. By choosing to focus on yourself rather than indulging in distractions or procrastination, you strengthen this part of your brain, making disciplined action more natural over time. Small decisions like turning off your phone during focused work periods, sticking to your fitness regimen even when you feel unmotivated, or carving out time for personal reflection all add up. They signal to your brain that these behaviors matter, reinforcing them as habits so that discipline becomes a part of your identity rather than a daily struggle. Resilience grows in the same process because focusing on yourself requires embracing discomfort and uncertainty. Every meaningful goal will involve obstacles, whether it's a tough workout, a challenging project at work, or a period of personal introspection. Prioritizing yourself prepares you to face those obstacles by encouraging a mindset that treats difficulty as an opportunity for growth rather than as a threat. You begin to trust yourself more because you recognize that even when things don't go perfectly, you are capable of adapting and moving forward. This self-trust is a cornerstone of resilience, allowing you to recover quickly after setbacks and continue working toward your aspirations. By putting your goals at the center of your decisions, you create a positive feedback loop. Each action you take in alignment with your personal growth reinforces the belief that you are someone who follows through and invests in your own success. Over time, this belief becomes self-reinforcing. You no longer need external validation or permission to focus on yourself because you have experienced firsthand the benefits of making yourself a priority. This intrinsic motivation is more powerful and sustainable than any outside pressure because it is rooted in your own experience and reinforced by your progress. Finally, prioritizing yourself allows you to live with greater integrity and authenticity. When you make your well-being and aspirations central, you show up in the world as someone who is grounded and self-aware. That authenticity has a way of improving all your other relationships and responsibilities too, because when you take care of yourself first, you have more energy, patience, and clarity to give to others. In this way, focusing on yourself is not an act of isolation. It's an act of creating a stable foundation from which you can contribute meaningfully to your work, your family, and your community. Over time, this practice of putting yourself first empowers you to face any challenge with greater strength, discipline, and resilience. Reducing distractions enhances deep, focused work because it allows you to reclaim your attention as a deliberate, directed resource rather than a scattered, reactive one. Modern life is designed to hijack your focus at every turn, phones buzzing with notifications, emails pinging, social media feeds updating endlessly, all of which fragment your capacity to concentrate. What most people don't realize is that every time you shift your attention away from a primary task to check a notification or scroll through content, you pay a significant cognitive cost. Research into attention and productivity reveals that this kind of task switching can reduce your effective focus by up to 40% because your brain needs time to reorient itself and reestablish the context of what you were doing before. By reducing these distractions, you give yourself the gift of sustained attention, which is the key ingredient for deep, meaningful work that actually moves the needle toward your goals. Deep work, those blocks of time where you are fully immersed in a single task, is where most real progress happens. It's where you generate new ideas, solve complex problems, and produce work of lasting value. Achieving that kind of deep focus requires an environment that supports it. That means turning off non-essential notifications, closing browser tabs that don't serve your purpose, and creating physical and digital spaces that help you concentrate. It also means acknowledging that the brain can only truly focus for limited periods before it needs a brief, intentional rest. Learning to recognize your natural rhythm of attention and working in intervals that fit your energy cycles will help you stay more engaged and avoid mental burnout. Even small, deliberate breaks, 5 or 10 minutes to stretch, breathe, or go for a short walk, can reset your focus and allow you to return to your work with greater mental clarity. Reducing distractions also improves the quality of your thinking. When you give your full attention to a single task, you allow your brain to form deeper connections and process information more thoroughly. Neuroscience has shown that the more often you switch between stimuli, the more superficial and fragmented your thoughts become. But when you maintain focus on one thing for an extended period, the brain engages higher-order processes that support insight, pattern recognition, and creativity. This is why some of your most powerful breakthroughs tend to happen after long stretches of uninterrupted attention. Your brain has had the time and space to explore ideas fully rather than jumping from one fragmentary thought to another. And while eliminating distractions might feel difficult at first, especially if you're used to a constant influx of stimuli, it's important to remember that focus is a skill you can train. The more you practice working without distractions, the easier it becomes. Initially, your mind may protest, you may feel restless or even bored without that easy dopamine hit from social media or entertainment. But over time, as you consistently choose focused attention, your brain adapts. Neural pathways related to sustained attention and task execution grow stronger, making it less of a strain to drop into deep work. It's a process of rewiring your brain to appreciate the long-term rewards of productive, focused effort over the fleeting pleasures of instant gratification. Reducing distractions also has significant emotional benefits. When your attention is constantly divided, it's easy to feel chronically behind and scattered. Deadlines feel more stressful, creative work feels more daunting, and small tasks can take far longer than they should. By creating a more distraction-free environment, you gain a greater sense of control and mastery over your day. You'll find that you make tangible progress more quickly and with less stress, which in turn boosts your confidence and motivation. This kind of self-reinforcing cycle, less distraction leading to better work, which then fuels a sense of capability, is exactly what allows people to sustain high levels of focus over the long term. Reducing distractions is about honoring the work that matters most. It's about creating boundaries that protect your most valuable resource, your attention, so you can apply it with full intensity where it counts. Whether you want to excel at your career, build a skill, or pursue a personal project, your capacity to focus deeply will determine the quality of your output and the pace of your progress. By making the deliberate choice to minimize distractions and give your full attention to the task at hand, you're not just working more efficiently, you're cultivating the kind of mental environment where creativity, insight, and sustained effort thrive. Daily habits compound into long-term victories because success is rarely the result of a single, dramatic breakthrough. Instead, it is the outcome of small, repeated actions carried out consistently over time. This idea is rooted in how our brains and bodies adapt to the choices we make every day. Every time you repeat a positive behavior, whether it's waking up early to train, choosing to read rather than scroll social media, or spending a few minutes meditating, you are reinforcing a neural pathway that makes that behavior feel more natural. The opposite is also true. Every time you choose a habit that doesn't align with your goals, you strengthen those less helpful pathways. This is why daily habits matter so profoundly. They shape your brain's wiring and establish the default settings for your behavior. When you commit to small habits that align with your long-term goals, you take advantage of a process known as compound growth. Similar to compound interest in finance, the returns on consistent habits accumulate gradually at first and then exponentially over time. That's why something as simple as doing 10 push-ups each morning or writing one page in a journal can eventually add up to a completely different level of fitness or skill after a year or two. The progress often feels invisible day to day, which can be frustrating if you're looking for instant results. But if you zoom out and look at the trajectory over months or years, those tiny daily habits will have produced profound change. Your brain is especially tuned to repeated patterns, and over time, habits become automated. What was once difficult or required intense willpower gradually becomes easier. That's because as you repeat a behavior, myelin, a fatty substance that coats and insulates neural pathways, accumulates around the circuits involved, allowing nerve impulses to travel faster and more efficiently. Essentially, myelination reinforces the habits you practice most, making them quicker and less taxing for your brain to execute. This is a double-edged sword, which is why it's so critical to choose habits carefully. Positive habits can simplify your life and help you do difficult things with ease, while negative habits will quietly erode your progress if you let them take hold. By thinking of your goals as a series of small, actionable habits rather than distant outcomes, you shift your focus to the process itself. That shift can feel liberating because it allows you to appreciate the daily steps without becoming overwhelmed by the scale of your ambition. Neuroscientific research supports this shift. The brain releases dopamine not only when you achieve a goal, but also as you move toward it. That's why having daily habits that mark progress is so important for sustained motivation. Each small action gives you a hit of reward, which fuels the drive to take the next action and the next, eventually creating a virtuous cycle where effort feels intrinsically rewarding. Moreover, the beauty of compound habits is that they produce leverage. Once small habits are ingrained, they free up mental energy for new challenges and more complex goals. For example, if you have a habit of regular exercise, you don't need to use willpower each morning to go to gym. It's already wired into your routine. That extra energy can then go toward learning a new skill or starting a new project. In this way, positive habits create a foundation that supports further growth, allowing your efforts to build upon one another instead of pulling you in different directions. The same is true emotionally and psychologically. Every time you show up for yourself, whether that's sticking to your schedule, finishing a difficult task, or saying no to something that doesn't align with your goals, you build self-efficacy, which is your belief in your own capacity to succeed. That belief is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you believe you can follow through on your commitments, the more you do so, and the more those successful experiences accumulate. Over time, this process rewires your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who is disciplined, resilient, and focused, which makes it easier to take on new challenges and set even higher aspirations. Daily habits compound into long-term victories because they leverage the most powerful aspects of human behavior: consistency, adaptation, and self-reinforcement. When you repeat small actions reliably over time, you take control of your trajectory and make success an inevitable outcome of your daily choices. Internal growth drives external achievements because all meaningful progress begins from within. The beliefs you hold, the mindset you cultivate, and the habits you practice each day shape the trajectory of your life long before any tangible results appear. Neuroscience and psychology have demonstrated that how you perceive yourself and your capabilities, often referred to as self-efficacy, plays a central role in your behavior. When you believe you can grow, adapt, and succeed, your brain becomes more responsive to learning and more resilient in the face of obstacles. That inner conviction fuels consistent action, which over time produces visible results. Without this kind of deep internal work, achievements remain fleeting, driven by luck or short-lived bursts of effort, rather than a stable foundation built on character and discipline. When you commit to internal growth, you begin by identifying the thoughts and habits that hold you back. This requires honest self-reflection and the courage to face your limitations without self-criticism. Instead of feeling defeated by what you find, you recognize these